Manager at Microsoft. I spent a few years there, was a general manager at Amazon. Before that, ran their shoes business in Amazon Fashion. So I was running that business. I was a chief operating officer for a startup, venture-backed startup in the Seattle area called Unicorn. Raised a bunch of money through them, launched multiple products and services to market. We had Mark Cuban and Ashton Kutcher as our investors. That's a tidbit people don't know about. So it was good to meet those folks. My was director of product at Groupon for a period of time, and really started off my career in the early days as a software engineer. So I started off as a software engineer at Microsoft, spent a few years there, got my MBA from the University of Chicago, then did all these different stints, and then finally running Kaspien. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, thank you for sharing that. But can we run a little bit even more backwards? Where are you from? How did you come here? Like, can you tell us a further story of how it happened that you in the place where you are today? Because I believe that your story is really inspiring. I really would love you to share that.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Mumbai, in India, and my parents, my dad was from the northern side of part of India, and my mom was part of the British in India were ruling India for a very long period of time, and so she's part of that descent. So she and my father met. I grew up in a mixed cultural Indian British sort of family, and my father was made Bollywood movies. He was a producer of Indian movies, and I grew up in that sort of lifestyle where actors, actresses, parties, all that typical Hollywood, Bollywood lifestyle that you see on television. That's how I grew up. But I was in love with computers. I just was a geek when I was growing up. I fell in love with my first Pentium 486. Most of you are probably too young to even know what that is, but it's a very big boxed computer. It won't even fit on this whole desk here today if you take a look at it. But I fell in love with that when I saw that for the first time. Microsoft was an upcoming company when I was young, and I was very inspired by Bill Gates's vision and some of the stuff that he was talking about, a PC in every home. And so I chose that route to educate myself. I kept away from my father's lifestyle, and I got my bachelor's of engineering in computer science in India. But I wanted to study more. So I applied to a number of schools here in the US, came to Clemson University to get my master's in computer science. I didn't really have a lot of money at the time. I was pretty broke, as most international students are sometimes. And neither did my mom have a lot of money. My dad had passed at that point of time. So I borrowed $2,000 from this guy, $2,000 from that one, so $2,000 from my uncle, somehow collected $10,000, booked one-way ticket to the US, got myself here enough money to pay my first semester's tuition, $6,000 at that time in Clemson. And then I started praying. I was like, I hope I get some job or something on campus so that I don't have to pay the second semester's tuition. That was my life at that time. Anyway, things went out pretty well. I got fully funded by the university. I came here. I got a full scholarship to study for the next 2 years. I was also a teaching assistant for Computer Science 101 at Clemson. I was a research assistant there for a professor. And so I had a great experience. I graduated with a 4.0 straight A's through my Clemson experience, and worked really hard, through that experience, and then got a job with Microsoft. So yeah, grew up pretty non-computer family, but took a liking and love to technology.
Well, that's a fascinating story. Like I can imagine that like a lot of international students have to go through maybe sometimes even more extreme conditions, maybe less extreme, but still it's pretty tough when you just come here. But it seems like from what you're telling, from the occupation you were growing into, there's supposed to be some sort of a mind shift from going more of like from following your dad's steps and going to this Bollywood like crazy life and actually getting focused on something that you love. Was there a moment that made this shift in your mind, or was it kind of with you all the time?
No, I mean, for me, to be honest, I mean, in I saw my father struggle a lot in his Bollywood, career. So that was also that influenced me. And as you can imagine, in the film industry, and maybe you don't, but I can give you some insight. There are a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes your movie is a big hit and you make a lot of money, and then the next few years all your movies are flopping left and right, and you don't have. So we struggled a lot as a family because there were highs and then there were lows. And so there was that aspect that also influenced me partially, which is, I wanted a little more predictability in my career, and some of that. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't want to take risks. I mean, working with Caspien and all is certainly a big risk, right? It's a small company, and all that. So, but there was some aspect of just, the influence of seeing these very random shifts in his career specifically. That was part of the influence to me. I also, very honestly, and maybe I'm giving you more information than you want, but my father also struggled, with on a personal note, from he couldn't, when his movies flopped, he would be depressed, and he would be drinking too much, and alcoholism, and some of that. And I saw a very bad side of that industry, right? And I knew that, I hey, look, I don't want to be involved with that. And I channeled some of that negative energy that you would see with that sort of lifestyle into a more positive side, and try to pursue my passion, which was, you know, computers and technology and building businesses. And I really loved that side of the world. So, Timothy, I'm not fully answering your question, but there's partially my area of interest, but then partially just some negative influences around me that I didn't want to be part of.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And also, I forgot one thing. I wanted to say something. I just wanted to congratulate you with the Caspian Employee Day. I saw your LinkedIn post today. Yeah. So it seems like there is a huge like cultural build with those 3 days where you just go and create a day, which is Employee Day, to just appreciate all the work they do. But I just want to go a little bit to the roots of that and how it started. So when you moved here to the US, you've been studying and you've been working at Microsoft, Amazon. But how was this idea? Why did you decide this business, Caspian? And what do you do exactly at Caspian?
Yeah. So at Caspian, what we do is we are a complete platform of software and tech-enabled services to help brands build their businesses on marketplaces, specifically Amazon, Walmart, eBay, Target, etc. So by and large, we are really an extension of any brand out there, any consumer-focused brand, to grow their business on these different marketplaces. And the time when the company started in 2008 or so, this was a very nascent opportunity. The Amazon marketplace had just opened up. It was, there were very few sellers on the platform at the point of time. There was a lot of upside opportunity at that time for, folks like us to get in and really drive the business forward. And so we recognized that opportunity as a company and said, look, there are not too many sellers here. We started making calls to brands, and we asked brands, do you want to sell on Amazon? And then they would say, what the hell is that? And well, it's a marketplace. Yeah, sure. Are you going to buy inventory? Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll buy your inventory. So, brands didn't even know. They were uneducated about the Amazon marketplace, the Amazon ecosystem. They thought Amazon was just another, online website, and no one thought of it as a new distribution channel that they could use to sell their brands. And so the reason was an opportunity in the market, an opportunity that was pretty nascent, but then also by having conversations with customers and identifying that, look, these guys have no idea how to run their Amazon business. So sort of merging the customer opportunity with the market opportunity that we saw out there, think blending that got us going. And there was some initial funding that we raised as a company as well initially to just buy some inventory. But then ever since, the company has been pretty self-funded, and we haven't raised any outside capital till recently, where we raised a bunch of capital last year. But yeah, that's basically it at a very high level.
Okay, thank you. And so the next questions will be a little bit more specific. I kind of want to split this conversation a little bit in two ways. Well, first we'll talk about you, your journey, the skills you learned, some advices that you would give to as a human being, and then like talk about more of what you do in the Kaspien, the company, and like some of your experience with working with various businesses. So. And coming back to the first part of the meeting, I just have a question. So it was a long journey for you, and there are multiple skills that you may have as the CEO of a company to just not only raise your business, but actually go public, which is another level of hardship to achieve. What skills do you think help you to achieve that, and how can we as students learn them?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there are many skills that everyone will. If you ask this question to multiple leaders, they'll all give you their version of that, right? So I'm going to give you my version of it that worked for me, and hopefully it'll help some of you here on the call. I think one thing that is very critical for any good leader to be is be very strategic and be very big picture thinking. So have a dream, have a vision, have a strategy around everything that you do, whether you're searching for a job, starting for a business, starting a business, or whatever you're doing in your career life. Just have a sort of vision around it, and then build a strategy around that vision. And a lot of people kind of miss that step. They start getting into the tactical details of executing. And don't get me wrong, you should execute, but it has to be based on some larger, bigger picture view that you have of the world. And so for us, that's been critical. We have a view for Kaspien, where we want to be. We have very clear cut, a long-term, hairy goal that we want to go after. And so these are elements that I think are very critical. When I wanted to, start the company and all of that, that was also part of a personal vision for myself, right? And saying, I'm going to have this big picture vision. What am I going to do working for Microsoft, Amazon? I want to take it to the next level. So you have to have a vision, but then having a strategy around that, how you're going to achieve that vision is critical, right? And so anyway, that's the first tip I'll give you. The second tip I'll give you is, then it comes down to execution, because you can talk a talk, you can have a vision, you can have all the fancy statements on a whiteboard, but can you tactically execute every day? Can you deliver results every day? Can you make improvements every day? And so being very execution oriented, rolling up your sleeves and getting stuff done every day towards that strategy, towards the vision that you have for yourself, is very critical. And so that's the culture we have at Kaspien. We have big goals, big vision statements, strategy, but then we are operationally a very efficient company. Every individual has clear goals, they have clear tasks, they have projects that they're accountable for, they have teams of people that are assigned to them, they have business reviews, they have stand-ups every day in which they're huddling and getting status from each other, supporting each other. So there's a lot of execution rigor that happens every day in the company. And then the final tip that I'll give you is just be very, alignment and communication oriented. It's one of the most critical pieces of any good leader, is to be able to communicate effectively. And when I said communicate, I don't mean, you got to speak really well or good English or some of that. Like, that's not the problem. It's how aligned are you keeping everyone? Do your employees understand your vision and your statements? Do your investors understand what you're trying to say? Does the press understand what you're trying to say? Do folks like you, when I talk to you right now as a stakeholder, do you get my story of my vision and, of the company? So everyone I'm interacting with, are they fully aligned on the picture of what your company is, what they do, what your story is? And so communicating is very important, and you'll realize every employee in the company, every word that you say will be taken very seriously and to heart by them. So you have to watch your words and watch how you communicate to them, the leadership starts at the top. There's an old saying, and it's very true. Employees get influenced a lot by what their leaders say. So, it's our job as leaders to be able to communicate very effectively. Anyway, I would give you those 3 tips at a high level: is be very big picture, visionary, strategy, be tactical, execute, roll up your sleeves, get stuff done, and then just communicate effectively and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Thank you. It's also like those tips seem like a whole roadmap for us, like a whole framework for us to know, okay, guys, you want to start a business, you have to have a big vision, create a strategy, then manage to communicate with your teammates to actually have it done. Like a whole framework with really good tips. And also what I liked about the communication, a lot of people, there is a bunch of statistics, like even LinkedIn comes up with top like demanded skills for employees and everybody says about communication, but very few people try to actually tell more and just really open the topic. What do they mean by communication? It's like speaking effectively and having people understand clearly what is your vision and what you want them to get done as their leader. And
exactly.
And thank you. And what are the main goals that you were setting yourself to arrive where you are today? And how do you set up goals? And what were yours?
Yeah, that's another good question, because when it comes to goals, I mean, everyone is going to have, again, their own personal achievements that they want to get done on a day-to-day basis, and in life in general. So for me, I'll give you the same answer that I just gave to you as it relates to the skills that you need. Even for your own personal life, you'll have to have a vision for your life. Where do you want to be? I like Jeff Bezos. I follow him a lot. I worked at Amazon too. He talks about something known as the regret minimization framework. And the regret minimization framework is basically says, if I'm 80 years old tomorrow and I'm in my deathbed, what are the things that I'm going to regret that I wish I had done in my life? And so that's the reason he started Amazon, is because he put himself in that phase and said, I can be at a hedge fund right now, which he was working for at the time, for a quantitative hedge fund. He can make a good money there for the rest of his life, and you retire rich, etc. But he would still regret on his deathbed that he never got the opportunity to change the world. He never really, pursued an entrepreneurial dream. And so I try to follow the same framework. You've got to start with, hey, what's your dream? Like 10, 15, 20 years from now, where do you see yourself? Do you really see yourself in your job? Do you see yourself doing the same thing that you are right now? Or do you have a larger vision for yourself? Now, whether you succeed on that or not is a different story, right? That is a different story. But you gave it your best shot. You tried. And so you got to start there. Then it's easy, right? So the things you're talking about are setting a goal. Then it's easy. Once you have a clear picture on where you want to go, then you start becoming tactical. You set goals for yourself. Like, hey, next couple of years, this is what I'm going to try to execute. I'm going to go work for Microsoft and go learn everything for the next 1 year. After that, I'm going to go and start my own company. I'm going to save money and I'm going to start my company. And in the next 1 year, I'm going to go and, research all the different options out there. So you can start breaking down your specific goals once you have clarity on where you want to go. And I think a lot of people miss that first step, which is, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, where do you see yourself, right? And for me, it was, look, I don't want to be launching Windows and Office applications and doing the same Microsoft coding, for the rest of my life. So I challenged myself and I said, if I really want to be the CEO of a business and I want to go run a large company, I want to go take a company public, I want to do all those things, what do I need to do now to get there? And then I started putting very tactical goals for myself. One goal was I needed to go get an education. So I went and got an MBA because I didn't know anything about business at the time when I was at Microsoft. And so I needed to go and get an education. Then I needed to get some real world business experience. So I went to a startup and I worked at a startup at CEO of the venture backed startup. I learned how to fundraise. I learned how to build financial models. I learned how to do competitive analysis, how to talk to customers, how to do sales, how to do customer service, how to run an account management team, how to hire people, how to recruit people. all that I learned, not in my own company, I learned that by working for someone else in a startup, taking a salary hit from what I was making at Microsoft. I was, so then you start putting more tactical plans for yourself once you have that larger vision. And that's what I did, just one step at a time. I just kept building out a plan for myself to get me to, Caspian today. And this is not it. There's going to be more coming in the future. For example, my next goal is to run a multi-billion-dollar business. And so my goal is to take Caspian to that level and, have a market cap of more than $1 billion on the public exchanges. So that's the next big goal, aligned to the larger vision of on my deathbed, how do I see myself?
That's a fascinating story. Just thank you for sharing that and this view. And like for those people, maybe the common excuse may be for people, not an excuse, but just what really happens to us as just teenagers who are just going there in college, is that we may see people like you who have achieved success and they're saying that vision is what helped me. I knew what my goals were. I saw myself in 20, 30, 40 years. But what to do? What should those people who don't know who they want to become, what should they do? What helped you decide what's your vision, how to find it?
Yeah. So one tip that I'll give you is just be open. Have a view on where you want to go and start executing towards that. And as you start learning more, you might decide to pivot the direction that you take. So don't let the analysis paralysis stop you from executing. So have a view of the world. For example, in my case, okay, I wanted to start, be the CEO of a company. Say that was my grand vision for myself. And I started down the route. And then if I realize, well, actually, I don't like the CEO role. Like, this is not fun. I don't like it. That's okay. I can change my vision, right? At that point of time. And so what I would say is, if folks here should just get a view on, hey, look, I really, I that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And I'll give you a very tactical example in 1 minute. But start initially experimenting and going down that route. And then if it doesn't work, it's okay to change direction. I'll give you a good example right now. When I started my business degree at University of Chicago, the Booth School of Business, I wanted to become an investment banker. So, so I felt when I was at Microsoft, before I went into true business, I said, well, I want to do deals. That's what I associated business with initially. I want to do deals. I want to be on Wall Street. I gotta have that lifestyle. I had a vision for that aspect of my life first. And I started executing down that route. And then I went and did an internship during my MBA school with one company. And I hated the job. I hated what those people do. I said, this is not me adding any value to the world. This is not doing deals. This is like, I couldn't identify with the culture, nothing. And then I shifted my direction and I said, look, what I really care about is not being an investment banker. What I care about is, adding value to the world and being able to, build a business, grow a business, create jobs, be able to create value, and so that I can extract some part of that value tomorrow through, better salaries and whatever, exit opportunities. So set a direction, start down the route, have sensory acuity to be able to change direction if necessary, and then pivot along the way. Follow the same principles of a startup to your own personal life as well. So, in fact, again, quoting one of my mentor, not mentors, but my, someone I adore, is Jeff Bezos, who says, it's okay to walk through two-way doors. And if you pay attention to that, it's okay to walk through two-way doors, because there's a reason it's two-way, because if you walk through and if you don't like what's on the other side, you can come back, So you don't have to have all the data needed for you to enter the two-way door, because you can always come back. So I would just recommend that. Try to find what your two-way doors are and try to enter them and come back if it's not working.
Well, thank you about that. And once we're on the subject of kind of learning from your own mistakes, or maybe just trying to find something new, what is your take on the risk? So, do you agree that no risk is already a risk? What is your do you believe that risk opens new opportunities, and how do you manage it in your day-to-day?
Yeah, it's a good question. See, look, I think everyone here are at least part of this is the international students, are part of this. And so I was an international student. Today I'm a US citizen, but at one point of time I was on an H1B, I was on a EAD, H1B visa. I've gone to all the visas that you can imagine, right from the student visas and everywhere. So even if you have a vision to be an entrepreneur or be an investment banker, whatever it is for you, at that time, I could not do it. I'm stuck at some level. So that's one aspect of like, I can't risk, right? There's so much risk in trying to start a business. At the time, I would lose my visa. I could lose my employment. Like there's a lot of there's an aspect of risk just on your personal situation. Then there are other aspects of risk, which is, you have a family, you have kids, you have a wife, you have a mortgage to pay, you have rent. Can I just go quit my job right now and start a business? No, right? So again, there's an aspect of, although I want to take the risk and the potential rewards that come out of that, I have to be risk averse because of my personal situation. So I think that answer, Dimitri, for you is the answer is not straightforward. It's very dependent on everyone's individual situation. At the end of the day, though, yes, the more risk, the more potential for reward, right? If as long as you manage that risk appropriately, if you're just going to work at a Walmart as a cashier, you have no risk or maybe very minimal risk, but your payout is going to be as much. But if you're Elon Musk, who says, I'm going to put out of my $70 million that I left, I'm going to put $35 million in Tesla, and I'm going to put $35 million in SpaceX, and I'm going to put all my money into these two companies. The potential to lose them all is also high, but the potential of reward is as high as you see what he's done today for himself. So it's a measured equation. You've got to think about it at your, where you are personally. Now, Elon Musk did not have a family, doesn't have a mortgage. You know what I mean? Like everyone's situation is very different. So you have to balance it with where you are at a personal level, knowing very well, though, that the more risk you take, the more potential for reward. And I say potential because you could also lose it all.
Thank you so much. I love the Elon Musk example. Pretty hot topic always. Whatever he tweets becomes a hot topic. The other question that I have for you is for people who are thinking about going about their own route in entrepreneurship, or maybe who are just want to go work. Do you think everyone can be a CEO? And what do you think about entrepreneurs as people? Can everybody be an entrepreneur, or like there should be something in them that is not presented in like regular people?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So one, first of all, I believe everyone should be an entrepreneur. Now, whether they have it or not is a separate question, but everyone should attempt to be an entrepreneur. So I'm a very firm believer in entrepreneurship, and especially where a lot of you are, your risk profile is a lot lower relative to my risk profile. Like I'm a lot older than most of you, right? So for me to start a company, going back to the question of risk is, I have to think about, like I said, my mortgage. I have to take care of my son, my wife. I have my ailing parents, whatever it is, right? Your profile is less risky. Maybe there are some visa issues and everything we're talking about. That's a separate problem. But from where you are in life, I firmly believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur, and you have an opportunity right now as to where you are to start a business with a lower risk profile relative to later on in life. And entrepreneurship is great from the perspective of not only for you personally, because there could be some really great opportunities in the future financially for you, but more importantly, it's creates value for this world. You're innovating, you're creating jobs, you're touching people's lives, you're giving back to society. You are doing so many things that, sometimes we only talk about, like, well, I want to give back to society, and I want to donate, or I want to, those are aspects of our lives that a regular worker will try to add on to his or her life. And what I'm saying is that as an entrepreneur, you get an opportunity to do all of those things. It's not by donating money, but it's by creating jobs and adding more value to the world, and by helping another business grow, or giving employees, better salaries tomorrow, and giving them stock options, helping them retire early. Like, you're doing all these things that entrepreneurship will gives you the opportunity to do. So everyone should be an entrepreneur. Now, there are certain skills that make it more conducive for you to be an entrepreneur or not. And then there are some skills that you might have to work on. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but you might have to work on. And what I have seen is some entrepreneurs, the best entrepreneurs are folks who are extremely positive about life. When you present them with an idea, for example, they're not the people who are saying it's not going to work. They're the kind of people who are saying we'll figure out a way to make it work. And so they have that general attitude of, look, we assume positive intent, it's going to work, we'll make it, we'll figure it out. And you need that in entrepreneurship because you're consistently going to face problems. And so your attitude is going to determine whether you will go through those problems or not. So that is a very critical piece of some of the best entrepreneurs I've seen, is they are always ready to figure out how to make it work, as opposed to, well, it's not going to work. And that general attitude that I've seen with, or some of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with and I've seen, has really differentiated them from some others. All the other skills like sales and ideation, those are all acquired skills, right? But your general attitude in life about how do I make it work when you face tough problems is what will determine your success or your failure. I don't want to give myself as the prime example here, but partially, like I said, I came from a tough upbringing. My parents were struggling, and like I said, through the ups and downs. Could I make it work through that? Yes. Did I see a bigger vision to come to the US? Oh, I have no money to pay for my education. Can I make it work? Can I go borrow from people? When I come to campus, can I go? I don't have money for the next semester's tuition. Can I make it work? So that general attitude of can I make it work when you're struggling is, in my view, will determine whether you are successful at entrepreneurship or not.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so we've been talking about kind of problem-solving skills that entrepreneurs have. We touched it a little bit. But can you just, for example, to us from your company, some maybe recent problems that you had and how did you solve it?
Yeah, I mean, the big problem that we had was, COVID hit last year. And when COVID hits, every business has struggled slightly. Although we are in the e-commerce space, no doubt, that market has not been affected as much as others. But every business is going to go through some issues or not. And so in our case, we have two business segments. We have our retail business segment and we have a subscriptions business segment. When COVID hit last March, we started seeing our retail business really pick up and our subscriptions business completely started failing. And what was more interesting is, though, we had indexed that the subscriptions business would be the one where we put all our, for fiscal year 2020, we were expecting the subscriptions business to drive most of our revenue for the year. So when we started seeing this business fail and this business take off, now the question is, how do we hit this subscriptions business plan when this is dying because of COVID? But guess what? I just told you, we are going to make it work, right? The general attitude. So immediately we pivoted very quickly. We created a new plan that we presented to our board, and the new plan had us over-index on the retail business, and we brought the subscription business down. And we put all our resources into this business. All the resources were sitting on this business. We moved all our resources into this business, and they started working day in and day out to make sure that we hit this new plan that we set for this retail business. And we put less attention on the subscription business. So the ability to be able to make it work, to be able to pivot quickly, to be able to recognize that there's a problem, to be able to jigger your resources quickly, to be able to have employees and create a culture that it's okay to fail and it's fine, are all the things that came together to help us solve the problem. And, we haven't reported our results yet. We'll come back. It'll come in 1 month, but we are going to hit our plan for the year. So that was good.
Awesome. By the way, are you planning to shift the focus back to the subscription when the COVID situation will dissolve?
Oh, absolutely. So, we started off on a high note and then it went down. So now we're just growing back from here on, right? So that's our approach that we're taking. So we're growing back again. We took a slight dip on the subscription business, which is now growing back again. Mm-hmm.
What is your take on the future of the industry you're in? Because it seems like there are a lot of competition growing up right now to what you're doing. What do you believe about the future of the industry, and how do you try to differ from your competitors?
Yeah. So our industry, first of all, is called seller services. And seller services is the industry that includes all the companies that are helping brands grow on different marketplaces. So all the different sellers on these different marketplaces. So that's the industry we play in. The industry, like you rightly said, is in a phase of consolidation. And what that means is there are many small players in this industry. And there's some large institutional capital that's coming in to consolidate this industry, which means there's a lot of mergers and acquisition activity that's happening in this industry right now. Because of what you rightly said, it's competitive. There are many players out there, and there's large institutional capital available. Now, where we differentiate ourselves from the rest of them is we have positioned ourselves as a one-stop shop platform of software and tech-enabled services. And we have multiple business models that sit on top of this core platform. A lot of all our competitors out there, they either provide software or they provide account management services, or they provide marketing services. There are a lot of players that are providing individual pieces of the puzzle that is required you to succeed on Amazon. Instead, we're taking a different approach. We're saying we're a one-stop shop. If you want to sell your inventory to us, we have a model for that. If you want to take your operations in-house, we have a model for that. If you want to serve as an agency, we have a model for that. If you want to start here and then you want to move here, we have a model for that. So we want to hold our customers' hand throughout their life journey, wherever they are, whether they don't know anything about Amazon or they know everything about Amazon, and help them through that process. And we provide a complete suite of offerings to help them through that. That's how we're differentiating ourselves from a positioning perspective in the market. Because of the way we're positioning ourselves, one other opportunity has come up in the market, which we are also going to take advantage of. The opportunity is what people are doing is now, what companies are doing is they're buying brands. So a lot of institutional capital is coming in to not just help brands grow, but to buy the brand completely and do a merger or an acquisition of the brand. Now that model lends itself very well to us because we already have the platform. We've got multiple business models that sit on top of the platform. It's very easy for us to add a fourth business model, which is now brand acquisition. So as that customer journey from a brand perspective moves from I have no idea about Amazon to I know everything about Amazon. Now there's an extra step in that journey that says I want to sell my business, I want to exit my Amazon business. Perfect. Kaspien also interjects itself at that phase in the life cycle of the customer. So that's where the industry is going. Consolidation happening, consolidation across marketplace seller services, consolidation across brands, It's centralization happening. We are already centralized. We will be acquiring brands. We'll be acquiring more companies. We'll be growing through acquisitions.
Uh, thank you for giving this insight. And what do you think is the reason why is this industry growing? Do you think it's because COVID just make this entrepreneurship uprise of people losing their jobs and go into more like money-making solutions? Some of those which just starting the Amazon, being an Amazon FBA, or what do you think is the true reason why there are so many people and then there is this consolidation phase going on?
So irrespective of COVID, this consolidation phase had already started in 2019 or so. So before even COVID started, we already saw the institutional capital coming in, acquisitions happening. So there was a bunch of activity that was already happening in this industry. Now, to your point around e-commerce growing, that also as a trend has been happening over the last 10 years, as you can imagine. And the metric around that is to note the penetration rate of e-commerce. So if you look at the chart for that, it's actually like this. It's been the e-commerce penetration relative to all of retail has been slowly and steadily increasing. So that's one trend. The second trend is the consolidation trend. What happened, Dimitri, in your case is in 2020, that penetration chart just became more perpendicular. So it increased the penetration. What we were expecting to happen in 8 to 10 years happened in 1 year. So the penetration of e-commerce increased. And I'll tell you the reasons for some of that. But the third trend is that the total distribution of sellers selling on marketplaces relative to the marketplace itself selling has been steadily increasing. What that means is, in Amazon's case, of all the volume that goes through Amazon, only 40% comes from Amazon itself. 60% comes from all the third-party sellers. And so that has been growing for the last 10 years from 5 to 10%. So another trend that we have noticed in our industry is that when we started, it was 5 to 10%. Now it's 60%. So there's a lot of the to your point on but what's causing the increase in penetration? It's very simple. It's the demand. People are shopping online more. People are getting the experience of shopping online, which is a lot better than going to the store. You have same day delivery, you have 1 hour delivery in some cases. And with COVID, at some level, you were forced to set up at home. So what COVID also did was it opened up a new customer. So people who are not shopping online much, they started shopping online, and they realized how good the experience of shopping online is. And now they're going to be regular customers of shopping online. So it opened up a new market of people who are casual shoppers online, who now become regular shoppers of online. And so there's some macro trends, and then there's some short-term demand spikes because of COVID that is causing a lot of more money now to come into the space.
Okay, thank you. It's an interesting approach. I didn't even think about it, that the COVID, it not only did made people maybe look more into entrepreneurship options, but also made them actually go online for shopping without actually an opportunity to go for traditional shopping. We have a little bit more than 10 minutes left. So guys, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have your own questions. So feel free to come up with them, put them into the chat. We'll have time for this Q&A session. But there are just a couple more questions that I would love to ask before we actually move towards the audience questions. So, so I guess my question is again about the Caspian and helping your customers grow on Amazon, and what do you see the most common weaknesses or mistakes that people do when they just decide to start selling online, and how do you help them solve it?
Yeah. So a lot of people, when they start selling online, they don't have a strategy around branding. They don't have a strategy around marketing. They don't have a budget for marketing. They don't think about SEO. They don't think about PPC and some of that. And so a lot of brands think that, well, I have a brand I have my own website. People know about my brand. But once they start coming onto Amazon, they realize that there are so many other brands there that how do you compete in that very crowded atmosphere? So they, they underestimate what the competition is on the platform, and they need to have a strategy around what it takes to build a business on Amazon. So knowing how to protect your brand effectively so that other competitors don't just steal part of your market share on the platform, knowing how to grow your brand through marketing campaigns, etc., is very critical. So that's one piece that people completely don't think about too much. But let's assume that they do think about that and they have a marketing strategy, branding strategy. The second piece that is very different from Amazon and online versus the rest of the world or the rest of retail is, the whole logistics game in Amazon is very different. So there's a lot of real-time demand that is coming on Amazon through, traffic on your listings that you have there. And then you have to continue to fulfill that demand on a regular basis. If you run out of stock and you're not on stock on Amazon, your reviews and ratings go down in terms of your search engine rankings go down on Amazon. And so being able to maintain your stock at every given point of time is a critical factor in how you run your Amazon business. And so a lot of these players don't understand that. Why? Because they were used to selling to Nordstrom in a wholesale manner. They were used to selling to Target in a wholesale manner, a brand. They were used to selling to, I don't know, Best Buy in a wholesale manner. So they didn't think about real-time demand and real-time managing of their stock. And so that's another aspect of where brands need to really pay attention. And Amazon, it's a different ball game. Online, it's a different ball game. You've got to make sure that you maintain your stock appropriately. Anyway, I can give you many examples, but those are the two cores: managing your supply chain effectively and managing your brand and advertisement strategies effectively.
Okay, thank you. And a couple more questions, just two. I promise, guys, and I see already questions coming. I promise, just two more questions. So you talked about that you're aware of recent trends. Just a quick question. How do you get this information? How do you manage to stay up to date about what's going on in the industry?
One is, I do a lot of secondary research. So I'm reading, subscribe to a lot of, in my industry, for example, there's a very popular blog called Marketplace Pulse. So that company publishes some really strong insights. And so being able to consistently read those, be on top of those is a key part of, one way, just doing a lot of secondary research. Read. I'll give one tip to you folks, read a lot if you can, learn a lot, absorb a lot. But then number two is I just talk to people. I'm talking to investment bankers in my industry, investors in my industry, customers in my industry, mentors that I know in my industry, my ex-boss who was in this industry. Like everyone who I've worked with at Amazon, I talk to people. So you have to consistently keep in touch with people in the industry that you're interested in or you want to be part of. And so that's the primary research that I do regularly. And so if you combine those two aspects of just being a lifelong learner, of consistently absorbing data, reading, having some dedicated time to read regularly, and then a dedicated time to talk to people regularly. For example, I aim for at least 30% of my week, I'm trying to have external conversations outside of my internal team. So 30 to 33%, one third of my time, I'm trying to get to just external conversations. I'm talking to people from the industry, to the press, to the media, anything else goes, but just to learn more about what's happening in that space. That's the approach that I take.
Okay, one last question about your first part of your approach. I saw that for on the new year for 2021, you posted on your LinkedIn your reading list, which had, I think, 20 different books that you want to read during the 2021.
Right.
Okay. And my question is, what are some of your favorite books, maybe top 3 books that you have read and you would recommend us to read as like beginning entrepreneurs?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can see my book list here at the back. So let me see. As beginning entrepreneurs, I would recommend this book. It's called Blue Ocean Shift. It's a really good book that teaches you a lot about how do you find opportunities in the market? How do you not work on competitive markets? Try to work specifically in areas that have blue oceans as opposed to trying to swim in red oceans that are full of people who are trying to compete. Another book that I would highly recommend is this is Ray Dalio's book. It's called Principles. So if you haven't read this, Ray Dalio is a top hedge fund manager in Connecticut, and he wrote a book on all his life's principles. And this is how he ran his company, how from a nobody became a multi-billionaire on running, his and how he ran his company. That's one. And there's one more book that I can't see it here, but yeah, there you go. And so in this book, I would recommend that you read. It's called Your Next 5 Moves. So to the points we talked about today around, you have your vision for yourself, but what are the next 5 moves you need to make to be able to get that vision into reality? So this book talks about the 5 next moves that you make on your career, your life, wherever you want to go. And so I would say, yeah, if you find a market opportunity, you make it tactical, and you live with your life with good principles, you should be successful. That's my recommendation. Oh, you're muted, I think.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I took some notes. Thank you. So let's just go to the questions from the audience. I already see Luke has posted his question. Guys, feel free to either raise your hand or just put your questions into the chat. We can read it out loud for you. So Luke asks, what advice would you give to your younger self when beginning your career?
Yeah, that's a good, good question. When I was beginning my career, I went down the route of, computer science and, engineering. No doubt I loved technology, but I love business a lot more. I love the business aspect of technology. So there could have been an opportunity where I, maybe took on product management or took some other roles within computer science, but that was more business focused early on in my career. I would have gotten more exposure. I would have probably saved, maybe a few years of my life versus spending too much time writing code, because my real interest was more in that product management business side of tech as opposed to writing code. So just know as you're going through your careers that even if you're doing a degree in business or you're doing a degree in computer science or whatever it is, there are multiple options that your skills could be applied to. Like after my computer science degree, I could have just tried to become a product manager or program manager at Microsoft. Maybe that would have served me a lot better. And so explore those various options. I could have done that. The second advice, I gave you the investment banking example. That's also another example of where, I wasted time in trying to go down this route of finance and everything. So maybe if I reflected more on my career, reflected more on my vision, reflected more on some of these elements that I'm showing you here, maybe I could have, the path to where I am today would have been faster. So, but again, everything's a learning experience. It's always good, but hopefully some of you will not make some of the mistakes that I made. So.
Thank you so much for answering these questions. Guys, please, any other questions? Well, we still have time. Feel free to.
So, I wanted to ask, what are some key aspects of building a successful team? Because I know that like the team at Kaspien, it's really successful, and I've seen the website. Also, I know that like you have a podcast and like you communicate with your team really well. So just wanted to ask, what are some key aspects of building and creating a successful team?
Yeah, we actually have a teams framework at Kaspien. We have a teams design framework, and we have 5 elements of that framework that we consistently push forward. And I believe those are 5 strong elements that could help any team. Well, one is, we speak about goals on our team very clearly. Everyone is clear on the goals that we want to achieve. Every team has a mission. Everyone is behind that mission. Everyone is going after that mission. Number 2, we believe very strongly in execution. So having a goal, having a dream for the team makes sense, but can you execute tactically every day? And who are the different components of the team? What are the different resources we need? All those elements of execution within that team are a second piece of our framework. Number three is diversity. We are a strong believer in diversity. So people with different backgrounds, people with very varied experiences, they all contribute towards the fourth element, which is all about innovation and creativity. So we want teams to not only be execution oriented, but to bring ideas to the table. So being very innovative, thinking outside of the box, bringing all your different perspectives to the table. And so that's the fourth element. And the fifth element is around governance. We want to make sure that every team has a single threaded leader and owner who's accountable for the success or the failure of the team, to drive towards results, to hold people accountable. So we take that view at the end of the day, Nala, and it's not like a single answer. It's all these elements have to come together. You've got to have a strong, diverse culture. You've got to have a strategy. Everyone has to be behind it. You've got to be execution oriented. You've got to have a good governance framework. You've got to have innovative creativity. You've got to bring all these elements together, and then a team is successful.
Thank you very much for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Guys, any more questions? Actually, maybe while people are thinking, I have one more question for you. Okay. So as a publicly traded company, why would people invest to you? Why should they invest into your company?
Oh, well, there are multiple reasons. I hope I gave some of them today, which is we operate in a growing market. There's tons of different opportunities. We're in the middle of the growth phase of this industry. And so that's one. If they invest in Kaspien, they're certainly getting exposure to an extremely strong market that we operate in. Number two, we are well positioned in this market. We have a strong valuable competitive positioning. We're a one-stop shop for everything marketplace growth relative to all the other competitors out there. We have a strong team. We have a diverse team. You have someone from Amazon, from Microsoft. You have someone with an MBA. Our CFOs from NASA. We have folks from ADP, from Bank of America. Got a strong leadership team, an executive team who can drive to the vision very effectively. And so with a strong product, with some strong experience, and in a growing market, there should be no reason why you don't invest in Kaspien.
Thank you. Guys, we're a little bit over the time, and I just want to not take a lot of your time, Kunal. I know it's really valuable. So I think maybe for people who did not have a chance to ask the question, but they still may have some thoughts, what is the best way to contact you if they want to connect and ask questions and just to talk to you?
Just send me an email, kunal@kaspien.com, and I'm more than happy to jump on a call or respond back to your email. Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you. Also, guys, I would suggest personally to connect with Kunal on LinkedIn. Maybe if you don't like LinkedIn for as a connection and chatting purposes, but what Kunal posts there daily, I find it really engaging and exciting to read the blog posts about his experience and some stuff that he shares about his life and the Kaspien culture of the Kaspien.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, everyone. I appreciate you having me on the call. I hope it was useful to you. But yeah, please keep in touch. Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.